hard to go on, you know, day by day. I mean, I carry my brother's pictures in my wallet, just a reminder.
19-year-old Jeremy Bailey cherishes snapshots of his tiny half-brother. They're the only tangible items he has to remind him of little William Sweet, who died at the hands of their 12-year-old cousin, Jason Whalen.
Parents should wake up. This is a wake-up call. Don't let your little boys watch that, or you do so at a grave risk.
William Sweet was small and frail, born prematurely at only 2 pounds 10 ounces, and fortunate to have survived weeks in the neonatal intensive care unit.
I remember seeing him in the hospital. I mean, I held him in my hands. I mean, he was so small, so tiny.
At 19 months, William was just beginning to walk and talk. He lived in Yakima, Washington with his mother, Carol.
He was happy. He loved everybody, and he was sort of like a magnet. When people would see him, they'd all want to, you know, hug him. He just exuded some kind of charisma that just seemed to draw people to him.
Carol Sweet was separated from William's father, Donald, but they shared custody of their baby son.
William was named after his grandfathers on both sides. He was the namesake, for lack of a better word, to carry the name on.
Money was tight for the Sweet family, so both Don and Carol worked 2 jobs to get by and pay off baby William's high medical bills. While they worked, William was left in the care of his 12-year-old cousin, Jason Whalen.
He was always a good kid until this point in time. I mean, he never got in any trouble.
He was a good boy. He was a real good boy.
When Jason's parents divorced, Jason lived temporarily with his aunt, Carol Sweet, who opened her home and heart to her transplanted nephew.
He lived with us for about 2 months until his dad was able to come out. And we got him into soccer and bowling and introduced him to friends of mine who had kids that were about the same age.
My wife and I were pretty much taking care of him solo, getting them registered for school and all that good stuff. And I remember we quickly put together a birthday party with some kids about his age, and I went down and bought a cake.
When Greg Whalen finally arrived in Yakima to reclaim his son, he rented an apartment and got a job washing dishes at a local hospital as Jason tried to adjust to new schools.
The description we've got of Jason, what he was, who he was as a child who almost seemed like he just got kind of tossed around from one place to another.
Like so many lost boys, Jason took comfort in escapism. He spent hours glued to the television set watching wrestling and playing violent video games.
That's all he do. That's all he do, watching the wrestling and play the video game. That's all he do.
His mom, you know, used to watch that stuff too, so I didn't really like it. You know, I thought it was fake.
Jason was also having a hard time making the transition from elementary school to the Wilson Middle School.
Somebody stole his bicycle and some kid assaulted him at school. He was a very sad little boy, a very passive child with poor language skills, borderline IQ, whose level of functioning was eroding day by day.
To add to Jason's stress level, he was now babysitting about 15 hours a week, ill-equipped to care for an active toddler.
I think you take a child who is very passive, who's not one to speak up and say, no, I don't want to do this, or I'm not going to do this, or I can't do this. And he's put in a circumstance that's above and beyond his capabilities.
Why didn't he tell me that he didn't want to babysit? Why didn't he tell me he was so angry? That's the question I wanted to ask him.
Jason's father, Greg, was also uneasy about Jason babysitting. 2 weeks before William died, he suggested to his sister Carol that she make other child care arrangements.
I just had this feeling inside that, you know, that he shouldn't be watching him. She started to cry and stuff like that when I told her that she had to find somebody else.
But Carol Sweet did investigate other child care options. And ironically, William was on a waiting list for a daycare center near Carol's workplace when time ran out. On the night of January 16th, 1999, the Sweets were both working, and Jason was babysitting.
I kissed William goodbye and waved at him, and he was all smiling and happy.
Carol left for work, never suspecting that would be the last time she'd see her baby alive. William started to cry and wouldn't stop. What happened next caused Jason to snap.
William was getting into his video games, and he was angry, and he moved William and tossed him on the couch to scare him. And then William went back over and grabbed his video games again, and he picked him up over his head and threw him on the ground.
William stopped crying, and then I got kind of mad and started slamming on the couch.
Jason says he was mimicking a lethal move he'd seen on television called the jackknife powerbomb. Jason knew he'd gone too far when little William stopped breathing and started bleeding from the mouth. Jason ran to the phone and called 911.
My cousin isn't breathing.
Okay. How old is your cousin?
He's a little baby, like almost 2.
What's your name?
Jason Whale.
What I want you to do is make sure he's flat on his back, bare his chest, pinch his nose with your fingers.
His mouth is covered with blood, everything, and blood coming out of his nose. It's like foam.
As Jason was trying to breathe life into William, the 911 operator kept cool. But despite his best efforts to save the baby, nothing seemed to work.
Straddle his legs like you're riding a horsey, okay? Now press into the stomach quick and upward. Do it 5 times, and then tell me when you're done.
Okay.
When paramedics arrived, they worked frantically to revive William. When efforts to stabilize him failed, they rushed him to Yakima Valley Memorial Hospital, where the baby was pronounced dead.
I hate him for what he did to William, for what he did to me. And there's no way ever that I will ever forgive him for what he did.
How was it you threw him?
The couch is right here, and I kind of slammed him right there.
Okay, and it was from over your head, and you threw him down. How many times did you do that?
3 or 4 times.
3 or 4 times.
Coming up next, more of Jason Whale's startling confession and what role did wrestling play in little William's death. We'll look for answers when we return.